Picture this. You're floating in the endless black of space, your ship's hull cracked like an eggshell, oxygen bleeding out into the void. Your crew is dying. Your homeworld is under siege, and in your final moments of desperation you send out a distress call across the galaxy hoping, praying, that someone, anyone, might hear you.
But what happens when the ones who answer aren't the peaceful explorers or advanced civilizations you expected? What happens when your saviors come from a planet so dangerous that the rest of the galaxy calls it a death world? What happens when these beings don't just rescue you? They declare war on your enemies with a fury that shakes the foundations of the universe. This is the story of the Zephyrian Empire's greatest mistake. They thought they were conquering another weak species. They had no idea they were about to wake up humanity, the apex predators of a world that tried to kill them every single day for millions of years. And when humans heard that cry for help echoing through the cosmic dark, they didn't just respond with ships and soldiers. They responded with the full weight of human nature itself. Protective, relentless, and absolutely terrifying when something innocent is threatened. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth wasn't just avoided by most species, it was feared. And why the humans who emerged from its deadly embrace were unlike anything the universe had ever seen. The distress signal lasted exactly 47 seconds. The war that followed would reshape the galaxy forever. Commander Kira Thanos pressed her bleeding hand against the emergency beacon, watching purple ichor seep between her scaled fingers. The bridge of the exploration vessel Harmony's Dream was a nightmare of sparking cables, shattered displays, and the bodies of her crew. Through the cracked viewport she could see the massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts closing in like metal vultures, their weapon ports glowing with the promise of annihilation. Emergency transmission protocol activated, the ship's dying computer announced in its artificially calm voice, broadcasting on all frequencies. Kira closed her eyes, feeling the weight of failure crushing her chest. The peaceful Altarian collective had sent them to explore the Outer Rim, to make contact with new species, to spread knowledge and friendship across the galaxy. Instead, they had stumbled into the path of the Zephyrian Empire, a militaristic nightmare that viewed every other species as either slaves or obstacles to be eliminated. The Zephyrians had given no warning, no demands for surrender. They had simply opened fire the moment the Harmony's Dream dropped out of hyperspace. Kira's crew of 37 scientists, diplomats, and explorers had been reduced to 3 survivors in less than 10 minutes. And now, as she watched the massive enemy ships maneuvering for the killing blow, even those 3 were about to become 0. This is Commander Kira Thanos of the Altarian Exploration Corps. She spoke into the transmitter, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Our ship has been attacked by hostile forces. We are all going to die here. If anyone receives this message, please know that the Zephyrian Empire is expanding beyond the Vega sector. They show no mercy. They take no prisoners. Warn your people. Warn everyone. She paused, looking at the tactical display where red icons represented the 17 Zephyrian ships surrounding her vessel. Each one was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Her own ship, designed for exploration and peaceful contact, had barely managed to scratch their shields before its weapons were destroyed. To whoever hears this, Kira continued, my people believe in peace, in understanding, in the beauty of diversity among the stars. The Zephyrians believe in only one thing, domination. They will not stop with us. They will not stop with any of us. Please, someone has to stop them. Someone has to. The transmission cut off as a plasma torpedo punched through the ship's hull, venting atmosphere and electronics into space. But the message had already been sent, racing away from the dying ship at the speed of light, spreading across every communication frequency in known space. 3 sectors away, on a monitoring station orbiting the gas giant Kepler 442b, a bored technician named Vex Morningstar was cleaning his desk when the alert chime rang through his cramped office. As a member of the Galactic Communication Network, Vex spent most of his time cataloging routine merchant transmissions, weather reports from agricultural worlds, and the occasional love song from some lonely freight pilot. Emergency signals were rare enough that the sound of the alarm made him spill coffee all over his keyboard. Priority distress signal detected, his computer announced. Origin point, Outer Rim, Sector 7. Classification, emergency broadcast, all frequencies. Vex pulled up the transmission, expecting to find another cargo hauler with engine trouble or maybe a mining accident on some remote asteroid. What he heard instead made his 6 arms freeze over his control console. The voice was calm but desperate, speaking a dialect of galactic standard that marked the speaker as one of the peaceful Rim species. The content, however, was anything but peaceful. "Computer verify signal authenticity," Vex ordered, his mandibles clicking with nervous energy. "Signal verified as authentic. Source vessel identified as Altarian Exploration Corps ship Harmony's Dream. No prior hostile activity reported from this vessel or species." Vex's compound eyes widened. The Altarians were known throughout the galaxy as gentle scholars and diplomats.
They had never been involved in any military action in recorded history. If someone was attacking them, it wasn't a simple territorial dispute or trade war.
It was genocide. "Route this signal to Galactic Defense Command immediately," Vex commanded. "Maximum priority." But as he worked to forward the transmission, Vex noticed something odd in the communication logs. The signal was being picked up by more than just official monitoring stations.
Deep space relay beacons throughout the galaxy were detecting and retransmitting the message automatically. That meant it would reach not just the major spacefaring civilizations, but also the isolated worlds, the independent colonies, and even the species that most of the galaxy preferred to avoid.
Species like the humans. 47 light-years away on the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star, the signal was detected by a radio telescope array in what humans called the Atacama Desert. The facility was part of Earth's search for extraterrestrial intelligence program, and for 60 years it had been listening to the cosmos, hoping to hear proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. Dr.
Elena Vasquez had been running the night shift for 3 years, and like most of her colleagues, she had long ago given up hope of detecting anything more interesting than cosmic background radiation. The SETI program was largely considered a dead end by the scientific community.
Most experts believed that any truly advanced alien civilization would use communication methods far beyond human understanding, which made the clear, desperate voice speaking in a recognizable mathematical language sequence all the more shocking. Elena's hands shook as she played back the transmission for the 15th time. The signal was strong, coherent, and definitely artificial. More importantly, it contained enough mathematical and physical constants to establish a basic translation matrix. Whoever sent this had specifically designed it to be understood by species with early-stage technology. "Jesus," Elena whispered, staring at her translation software's output. "They're asking for help." She reached for her secure phone, then hesitated. In her excitement, she had initially focused on the miraculous fact of alien contact. But as the full meaning of the message sank in, Elena realized she wasn't just looking at humanity's first confirmed contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. She was looking at evidence of what sounded like an interstellar war. The caller ID showed her supervisor's number. But Elena knew this was going to go far beyond Dr. Morrison's authority. This was going to reach the highest levels of government within hours. And if the message was accurate, if there really was a hostile alien empire expanding through space, then humanity was about to face its greatest challenge since the dawn of civilization. What Elena didn't know, what no one could have known, was that the Zephyrian Empire had been watching Earth for over 2 decades. They had classified it as a death world and its inhabitants as a potential extreme threat after observing human history and biology. The Empire's expansion plans specifically avoided the Sol system until they had conquered enough territory to mount an overwhelming invasion. The Zephyrians understood that humans were dangerous. What they had failed to grasp was exactly how dangerous humans became when someone heard something they decided to protect. As Elena placed her call to Dr. Morrison, she had no way of knowing that she had just lit the fuse on the biggest mistake the Zephyrian Empire would ever make. The signal from the dying Altarian ship had done more than alert humanity to the existence of alien life. It had shown them that somewhere in the dark between the stars, innocent people were being murdered by bullies with bigger guns. In every human culture, in every language, in every corner of Earth's bloody history, there was one constant. When the strong preyed upon the weak, there would always be someone ready to even the odds. And now, for the first time in human history, that someone had the technology to take their protection instincts to the stars. The Zephyrian Empire had just declared war on a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning how to kill everything that threatened them. They had attacked people under humanity's protection without knowing that humans had even claimed that protection. In military academies across the galaxy, there was an old saying, never corner a predator. The Zephyrians were about to learn why Earth's apex predator species had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. And they were about to discover that when humans said never again, they meant it on a galactic scale. General Marcus Cole stood in the Pentagon's deepest briefing room, watching the translation of the alien distress signal play for the 20th time in 4 hours. Around the table sat the most powerful people in the United States military, along with hastily summoned representatives from NASA, the CIA, and 3 other intelligence agencies whose existence was still classified. Outside this room, similar meetings were taking place in Moscow, Beijing, London, and every other capital on Earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary of Defense Patricia Hammond said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. We are no longer alone in the universe. And apparently, we're not the most dangerous thing out there either.
Dr. Sarah Chen from NASA's Astrobiology Division stood up, her laptop displaying a complex star chart. The signal originated from coordinates that put it approximately 47 light-years from Earth, in what we call the Lyra constellation. Based on the mathematical constants in the transmission, we've established that the sender uses a base 12 counting system and has scientific knowledge roughly equivalent to our own.
What about these Zephyrians mentioned in the message? Asked Admiral Rebecca Torres, commander of the Pacific Fleet.
Chen's expression darkened. That's where things get concerning. Cross-referencing the astronomical data in the transmission with our deep space observations, we believe the Zephyrian Empire controls at least 43 star systems. If the message is accurate, they're expanding rapidly and eliminating any species that won't submit to their rule. General Cole leaned forward, his weathered hands folded on the table. At 62, he had served in every major conflict for the past 4 decades. He had seen humanity at its worst and its best, and he understood something that the scientists and politicians in the room were still grappling with. How long before they reach Earth? He asked quietly. The room fell silent. Doctor. Chen consulted her notes, her face pale. At the expansion rate suggested by the transmission, and assuming they maintained their current trajectory toward the galactic rim, approximately 40 to 50 years. 2 generations, General Cole said. Enough time for my grandchildren to grow up in the shadow of an alien invasion. Secretary Hammond stood up, which is exactly why we're not going to wait for them to come to us. As of this moment, Project Prometheus is authorized. The name meant nothing to most people in the room, but General Cole's eyes sharpened. He had been briefed on Prometheus 6 months ago, a theoretical framework for rapid military expansion beyond Earth's atmosphere. At the time, it had been pure science fiction. Now, with an alien empire expanding toward human space, it was their only hope. Ma'am, Admiral Torres interjected, Prometheus assumes we have at least 15 years to develop the necessary technology. We don't even have a working fusion drive yet, let alone faster than light travel. Then we make one, Hammond replied. Dr. Chen, I'm authorizing you to contact every physicist, engineer, and material scientist on the planet. Money is no object. Secrecy is no longer a concern. We need working prototypes of every theoretical propulsion system we've ever imagined, and we need them yesterday. General Cole stood up slowly. Ma'am, with respect, building ships is only half the problem. We need to know what we're up against. These Zephyrians wiped out an entire crew in 10 minutes. We need intelligence, and we need it before we go flying blind into a war zone. What are you suggesting, General? Cole walked to the star chart displayed on the wall. We send scouts. Small, fast ships with the best stealth technology we can build. Get them close enough to Zephyrian territory to observe their capabilities, their tactics, their weaknesses. And he paused, looking at the coordinates where the alien distress signal had originated. We find out if there are any survivors. 3 months later, in a secure facility buried beneath the Nevada desert, the first human interstellar vessel was taking shape. The HSS Pathfinder looked nothing like the sleek starships of science fiction. It was angular, aggressive, covered in sensor arrays and weaponry that had been designed specifically for war. Humanity had looked at the evidence of the Zephyrian Empire's brutality and decided that when they went to the stars, they would go armed. Captain Sarah Mitchell walked through the ship's corridors, marveling at the technology that had been developed in just 90 days. The fusion drive was based on breakthrough research from CERN. The hull was constructed from metamaterials that could deflect energy weapons and absorb impacts that would destroy conventional armor. The weapon systems incorporated every lesson learned from a century of human warfare, adapted for the vacuum of space. But the most important system aboard the Pathfinder was its communication array. If Captain Mitchell and her crew found survivors from the alien attack, they needed to be able to establish contact. Humanity's first words to another intelligent species couldn't be surrender or die. They had to be something better. Captain, her communications officer, Lieutenant David Park, called from his station. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Priority Alpha. Mitchell moved to the command chair, noting that her crew of 12 was watching her carefully. They all knew this mission would determine humanity's future in the galaxy.
Either they would return with information that could help Earth prepare for war, or they wouldn't return at all.
Put it through, Lieutenant. General Cole's voice filled the bridge. Captain Mitchell, we have new intelligence from our deep space monitoring stations.
The Zephyrian Empire has been active in the past month. 3 more star systems have gone dark. They're moving faster than our initial projections suggested. Mitchell felt her stomach tighten.
How much faster, General? 20 to 30 years instead of 40. Maybe less. Cole's voice was grim.
Captain, this is no longer just a scouting mission. If you find any intact alien technology, any survivors who can provide tactical intelligence, any weakness in their expansion pattern, bring it back.
Humanity doesn't have time for a slow buildup. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Mitchell looked at her crew, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces.
They were heading into the unknown to face an enemy that could destroy planets, armed with untested technology and desperate hope. Lieutenant Park, Mitchell said, open a channel to all departments. When the ship's communication system confirmed she was connected to every member of her crew, Mitchell stood up.
She had served 20 years in the Navy, commanded vessels through hurricanes and hostile waters, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, 6 months ago we thought we were alone in the universe. Today, we know that somewhere out there an innocent species is being slaughtered by an empire that sees other forms of life as obstacles to be removed. In a few hours, we'll be the first humans to leave our solar system. We're going to find these killers, learn everything we can about them, and bring that information back to Earth. She paused, looking at each face on her bridge crew. I won't lie to you, we might not come back. This ship is the most advanced thing humanity's ever built, but it's still built by a species that has never fought a war in space.
We're David going up against Goliath, except Goliath has energy weapons and ships the size of cities. Ensign Maria Santos, the ship's youngest crew member at 23, raised her hand.
Captain, what if we find survivors? What if there are aliens out there who need our help right now? Mitchell smiled. It was the question she had been hoping someone would ask, because it went to the heart of what made humans different from the Zephyrian Empire. Then we help them, Ensign. We help them, and we show them that not every species in this galaxy believes that might makes right. She turned to her navigator. Mr. Kana. Thompson set course for the Lyra constellation. Maximum burn.
As the Pathfinder engaged its fusion drive and began accelerating toward the edge of the solar system, similar scenes were playing out in facilities around the world. The Russians were launching their own scout ships.
The Chinese had fast-tracked 3 different experimental vessels. The European Space Agency, working in cooperation with NASA, was preparing a fleet of robotic probes designed to infiltrate Zephyrian space undetected. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth was united by a single purpose: preparing for a war that would determine whether humanity survived as a species or became another footnote in the Zephyrian Empire's expansion records. What none of them knew was that their response had already been noticed. Deep space monitoring stations throughout the galaxy had detected the sudden spike in Earth's technological emissions, ships launching from a previously primitive world. Energy signatures that suggested rapid weapons development. Communication traffic indicating unprecedented global cooperation. The Zephyrian Empire's Military Intelligence Division flagged Earth for immediate attention. Their initial assessment had classified humans as a potential threat requiring careful planning to defeat. The new data suggested something far more dangerous. Humans were not just a potential threat. They were a threat that was actively mobilizing for war. Emperor Thaxephor, ruler of 43 conquered worlds, and supreme commander of the greatest military force in the galaxy, stood in his flagship's war room studying the tactical display showing Earth's location. His advisors recommended immediate invasion before the humans could develop their technology further. His military commanders wanted to send a battle fleet to sterilize the system before it became a problem. But Emperor Thax was a student of military history. He had conquered 43 worlds by understanding his enemies before he fought them, and the data from Earth suggested something he had never encountered before. A species that had detected the Empire's existence and declared war without ever being directly threatened. Fascinating, the Emperor murmured, his scaled fingers tracing Earth's orbital path on the holographic display. They heard one distress call from a species they had never met, and their entire world mobilized for conflict. Either they are remarkably stupid or they operate under a completely different set of motivations than any species we have encountered. His military advisor, General Craig Harbinger, stepped forward. Sir, our intelligence suggests the humans are technologically inferior by at least 50 years. We could destroy their world with a single battle group.
Yes. Emperor Thax agreed.
We could, but first I want to understand what would make a species declare war to protect strangers. Schedule a reconnaissance mission to the Sol system.
full stealth protocols. I want to observe these humans before we destroy them. The Emperor had no way of knowing that his decision to study humanity before attacking would prove to be the final mistake of his long military career. There were some things about humans that couldn't be understood from a distance, some aspects of human nature that only revealed themselves when someone threatened the innocent and helpless. The Zephyrian Empire was about to discover that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They had survived ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless predators by developing one simple survival trait. When something threatened their pack, they didn't run. They didn't hide. They hunted it down and killed it before it could hurt anyone else. Captain Sarah Mitchell pressed her face against the viewport of the HSS Pathfinder, watching the twisted wreckage of the Altarian ship tumble slowly through space. After 6 months of faster-than-light travel using humanity's first successful Alcubierre drive, they had finally reached the coordinates from the distress signal. What they found was a graveyard. Life signs? She asked her science officer. Dr. James Wright looked up from his scanner display, his expression grim.
There's something, Captain. Very faint.
2 kilometers off our starboard bow, in what looks like an escape pod. Mitchell turned to her pilot. Bring us alongside, nice and easy. I don't want to spook anyone who might be alive over there. As the Pathfinder maneuvered closer, the details of the battle became clearer. The Altarian ship had been beautiful once, with graceful curves and artistic flourishes that spoke of a culture that valued aesthetics over military function. Now it was nothing but twisted metal and frozen atmosphere, punched full of holes by weapons that made human armaments look like children's toys. Captain, Lieutenant Park called from his communication station. I'm detecting a weak emergency beacon from the escape pod. It's broadcasting a mathematical sequence. Looks like a distress call. Any response when we hail them? Negative, ma'am. Could be equipment failure or... Park hesitated. Or whoever's inside might not trust unknown ships approaching their location. Mitchell nodded. After what these aliens had been through, paranoia was a survival trait. Dr. Wright, take Martinez and Chen. Full environmental suits. Let's go introduce ourselves to our new neighbors. 20 minutes later, Mitchell and her team were floating in the vacuum between their ship and the alien escape pod. Up close, the damage was even more horrifying. The pod had been hit by some kind of energy weapon that had melted through its outer hull. Atmosphere had vented through the holes, and the interior was probably a frozen wasteland. Motion sensor is picking up something, Martinez reported through the comm system. Definitely alive, but barely. Body temperature is way below what should be survivable, Doctor. Wright attached a magnetic coupling to the pod's airlock. Captain, these aliens might have radically different atmospheric requirements. We could be killing them by trying to help. Or we could be saving them, Mitchell replied. Only one way to find out. Open it up. The airlock cycled, and emergency lighting flickered on inside the pod. What they found was a being unlike anything in human imagination, but undeniably intelligent. The alien was roughly humanoid with scaled skin that had turned blue from cold exposure and 4 arms that were wrapped around what looked like a child of the same species. Both were unconscious, their breathing so slow it was barely detectable. Jesus, Chen whispered. How long have they been like this? Mitchell checked the pod's emergency log. The display was alien, but the mathematical sequences were interpretable. According to this, about 6 months. They've been in some kind of hibernation state, living off stored body fat and slowed metabolism. Dr. Wright ran his medical scanner over both aliens. Captain, they're dying. Even with their reduced metabolic state, they've pushed their biology past the breaking point. Maybe another few days at most. Mitchell made a decision that would echo through galactic history. We're taking them aboard, Dr. Timmons said. Wright, prepare the medical bay for alien physiology. Martinez, help me get them secured for transport. Ma'am, Chen said quietly, we don't know anything about their biology. They could be carrying diseases that would kill every human on Earth. Then we'll deal with that problem when we come to it, Mitchell replied. Right now, these are survivors of a massacre asking for help. That's all I need to know. The transfer took 40 minutes, during which the adult alien regained consciousness briefly. Its eyes, large compound structures that reflected light like gemstones, focused on Mitchell's helmet with obvious intelligence. The creature's mouth moved, producing sounds that the ship's computer automatically recorded and began analyzing for linguistic patterns. Once both aliens were secured in the Pathfinder's medical bay, Dr. Wright began the delicate process of trying to save lives without knowing what he was saving. The ship's medical computer, loaded with every piece of biological and medical knowledge humanity possessed, worked frantically to adapt human medical procedures for alien physiology. Temperature is the immediate problem, Wright reported to Captain Mitchell. They're cold-blooded, but their core temperature is 20 degrees below what their hibernation protocols were designed for. They're essentially freezing to death from the inside. Mitchell watched the medical displays, seeing 2 heartbeats that were growing weaker by the hour. Can you stabilize them? Maybe. But Captain, even if I can get them back to normal body temperature, we don't know what they eat, what their atmospheres should be, what medications might be toxic to them.
I'm flying blind here.
The younger alien, who appeared to be an adolescent, opened its eyes and looked directly at Mitchell. For a moment, human and alien regarded each other across the vast gulf of evolutionary history. Then the young creature raised one of its 4 hands and placed it against the transparent barrier separating them. Mitchell placed her own hand against the barrier, matching the alien's gesture. "We're going to help you," she said softly, knowing the alien couldn't understand her words but hoping it might understand her tone. Over the next 72 hours, Dr. Wright performed what could only be described as miracles of improvised xenobiology. Using a combination of human medical techniques, trial and error, and desperate creativity, he gradually brought both aliens back from the edge of death. The adult, who identified herself through mathematical symbols as something translatable as Healer Zara, was the first to recover enough to attempt communication. The breakthrough came when Lieutenant Park realized that the alien's distress beacon contained more than just a call for help. It contained a basic linguistic and mathematical primer designed to establish communication with any species that might respond. Within hours, the ship's computer had generated a rudimentary translation matrix. "Captain," Zara said through the computer's translation program, her voice synthesized but carrying obvious emotion. "My daughter and I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. You have shown kindness to strangers when you could have simply taken what you wanted from our ship." Mitchell sat down across from the alien, noting that Zara's daughter was listening intently despite her exhaustion. "We're explorers, Healer Zara. We heard your distress call from our homeworld. We came to help." Zara's large eyes widened. "Your homeworld? How far did you travel to reach us?" "About 47 light years." The alien's 4 hands moved in what appeared to be a gesture of shock. "Impossible. No species travel such distances to aid strangers. What do you want from us? What is the price of our rescue?" Mitchell exchanged glances with Dr. Wright. The alien's suspicion was understandable, but it revealed something troubling about the galaxy they had entered. "There is no price, Healer Zara. We helped you because you needed help. I do not understand. Your species expended vast resources to travel here, risked your lives to save ours, provided medical care without knowing if we carried diseases.
What benefit do you gain?"
Mitchell realized she was having humanity's first diplomatic conversation with an alien species, and the alien couldn't comprehend the concept of altruism.
"The benefit is knowing that you and your daughter are alive and safe."
Zara was quiet for several minutes, her complex eyes studying Mitchell's face.
When she finally spoke, her voice was different, softer. "Captain Mitchell, in all my years as a healer, traveling between worlds to provide medical aid, I have never encountered a species that acted from pure compassion. The galaxy is a dangerous place where the strong prey upon the weak. Your species is either very foolish or very different." "Maybe both," Mitchell admitted. "Healer Zara, we need to know about the Zephyrian Empire. They're expanding toward our space, and we need to understand what we're facing." The change in Zara's demeanor was immediate and dramatic. Her skin darkened and all 4 of her hands clenched into fists. "The Zephyrians are a plague upon the galaxy. They have conquered 43 worlds in the past century, enslaving or exterminating every species they encounter. They attacked our peaceful exploration vessel without warning, without demands for surrender. They simply destroyed us. Are there other species fighting them?" Zara made a sound that the translator identified as bitter laughter. "Fighting them? Captain, the Zephyrian Empire fields battle fleets that can crack planets. Their technology is centuries ahead of most spacefaring species. Those who do not submit immediately are wiped out. Those who do submit become slaves in their industrial complexes." Mitchell felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "What about alliances? Surely some species have banded together to resist them?" "There have been attempts," Zara said. "The Centauri coalition tried to unite 12 species against the Empire. The Zephyrians destroyed their combined fleet in a single battle, then sterilized all 12 homeworlds as an example to others.
The Galactic Defense League lasted 3 years before the Empire infiltrated their command structure and turned their own weapons against them.
Doctor?
Wright leaned forward. Gila, Zara, what would it take to defeat them? Zara's daughter spoke for the first time since recovering consciousness, her young voice carrying an old bitterness.
It would take a species with technology equal to theirs, willing to fight a war that might last centuries, that would never surrender no matter how many of their worlds burned. It would take a species insane enough to choose mutual annihilation over submission.
Mitchell and her crew exchanged glances. The young alien had just described humanity's response to existential threats throughout their history. There is one thing, Zara said thoughtfully. The Zephyrians have a weakness, though I hesitate to call it that.
They are utterly convinced of their own superiority. They do not adapt their tactics when facing primitive species.
They use overwhelming force and predictable patterns. A species with inferior technology but superior tactics might be able to exploit their arrogance. Like asymmetric warfare, Dr. Wright murmured. I do not know that term, Zara said. Mitchell smiled, and there was something in her expression that made both aliens lean back slightly.
It means fighting dirty when you can't fight fair. It means using your enemy's strengths against them.
It means never, ever giving up.
Over the following weeks, as the Pathfinder made its way back to Earth, Zara provided detailed intelligence about Zephyrian military capabilities, technology, and tactics. Her daughter, whose name translated roughly as Star Singer, proved to have an eidetic memory for technical specifications and had absorbed enormous amounts of information during her family's travels.
What emerged was a picture of an empire that was militarily unbeatable through conventional means, but possibly vulnerable to the kind of unconventional warfare that humans had been perfecting for millennia. The Zephyrians were technologically superior, but they were also predictable, arrogant, and completely unprepared for an enemy that would sacrifice everything rather than surrender.
By the time the Pathfinder entered Earth's solar system, Captain Mitchell had already transmitted preliminary reports that would reshape humanity's war preparations. They were outgunned, outmatched, and facing an enemy that had conquered nearly 50 worlds without suffering a major defeat. But they were also humans, and humans had a saying that the Zephyrian Empire was about to learn the hard way. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity had been in a fight for survival for their entire existence. And they had never learned how to lose.
Admiral Chen Wei stood before the United Nations Emergency Assembly, watching representatives from every nation on Earth study the tactical displays showing Zephyrian ship configurations. Behind her, healer Zara and her daughter Star Singer sat at a specially constructed table, their presence still causing murmurs of amazement from delegates who were still adjusting to the reality of alien life.
Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Chen began. 18 months ago, we discovered we were not alone in the universe. Today, we know we're facing the greatest threat in human history. The Zephyrian Empire has military technology approximately 200 years ahead of our own. Their ships can destroy planets. Their weapons can sterilize continents. By every conventional measure, we cannot win this war. She paused, letting the weight of that statement settle over the assembly.
Which is why we're not going to fight it conventionally. The Chinese delegate raised his hand. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing?
We've seen the intelligence reports. One Zephyrian dreadnought outguns our entire combined fleet. Then we don't fight their dreadnoughts, Admiral Chen replied. We fight like humans have always fought when facing superior force. We adapt. We improvise. We make them come to us, and when they do, we show them what 40,000 years of evolutionary warfare looks like.
Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as Earth's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display showing the Zephyrian expansion pattern. The Empire conquers worlds through a predictable methodology.
They arrive in system with overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and if refused, they demonstrate their power by destroying military targets. Most species submit after this show of force.
Those that don't are systematically exterminated. The Russian representative, General Kozlov, stood up.
Are you suggesting we should surrender? No, Admiral Chen said firmly. I'm suggesting we should appear to surrender. The assembly erupted in angry voices, but Chen raised her hand for silence. The Zephyrians have conquered 43 worlds using the same strategy because it works. Every species they've faced has either submitted immediately or tried to fight them in space using inferior technology. We're going to do something different. Healer Zara activated her translation device.
Honorable humans, I must warn you that the Zephyrians do not accept conditional surrenders. If you submit to them, they will enslave your entire species.
Your planet will become an industrial complex. Your children will be born into servitude, which is why our surrender will be temporary, Admiral Chen replied. Long enough to get them into Earth's gravity well. Long enough to make them confident. Long enough to make them careless. Starsinger spoke up, her young voice carrying confusion. You intend to fight them on your planet's surface? That is suicide. Zephyrian ground forces are equipped with energy weapons that can level cities. Their soldiers wear powered armor that makes them nearly invulnerable. General Martinez from the United States stood up, and his smile was predatory. Starsinger, has the Zephyrian Empire ever fought a war on a death world? I do not understand that term. Doctor. Vasquez pulled up a new display showing Earth's environmental history. Starsinger, most inhabited worlds in the galaxy are what we call garden worlds. Stable climates, abundant resources, ecosystems that evolved to support life. Earth is different. Earth has spent the last billion years trying to kill everything that lives on it. The display showed a timeline of Earth's catastrophes. Asteroid impacts, ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, mass extinctions, climate shifts that would have sterilized most worlds. Every species on Earth is a survivor of evolutionary pressures that would destroy life on most planets. Humans specifically evolved from predators who had to adapt to constant environmental threats while competing with other apex predators for resources. Starsinger's large eyes widened as she absorbed the implications. Your entire species evolved under warfare conditions? Not just warfare, General Martinez said. Asymmetric warfare. Humans learned to fight larger, stronger, better-armed opponents by using terrain, weather, technology, and tactics that our enemies couldn't predict or counter. We've been doing it for millions of years. Admiral Chen activated another display showing Earth's geography. The Zephyrians will expect to fight us in space or in open terrain where their technology advantages are decisive. Instead, we're going to pull them into urban environments, underground complexes, mountain ranges, swamplands, Arctic conditions, and desert warfare scenarios where their advantages become liabilities. Healer Zara leaned forward, her four hands pressed flat against the table.
Admiral, even with terrain advantages, how can you hope to defeat soldiers wearing powered armor with weapons that barely damaged? General Kozlov smiled, and his expression was eerily similar to Martinez's predatory grin. Healer Zaraya, has anyone ever explained to you why most galactic species avoid death worlds? They are considered too dangerous to colonize or exploit. Exactly.
But humans didn't avoid the danger. We weaponized it. Dr. Vasquez brought up a new set of images showing Earth's most extreme environments. Humans have learned to fight in temperatures that range from -60 Celsius to +60 Celsius. We can operate at altitudes where the atmosphere is too thin to support most life forms. We can function underwater, underground, in radioactive zones, in chemical storms, in earthquake zones, in active volcanic regions.
More importantly, Admiral Chen continued, we've learned to use all of these environments as weapons.
Hurricane-force winds that can flip vehicles, mud that can trap heavy machinery, cold that can freeze mechanical systems, heat that can overload electronics. Humans don't just survive in these conditions, we fight in them. The Brazilian representative raised her hand.
Admiral, are you suggesting we intentionally expose our own planet to environmental warfare? I'm suggesting we use our planet's natural advantages to level the playing field. The Zephyrians expect to fight a conventional military force on a garden world.
Instead, they're going to fight guerrilla forces that have been training their entire evolutionary history to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species. Starsinger was studying the environmental data with obvious fascination. Your species has survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. You have fought wars in swamps that would poison most beings. You have developed tactics for mountain warfare at altitudes where our species could not survive. She paused, looking up at the human delegates. You are not just a warrior species, you are a species of survivor warriors. General Martinez nodded. Every human on Earth has ancestors who survived the worst environmental disasters in galactic history. We carry the genetic memory of ice ages, volcanic winters, meteor impacts, and ecological collapses. When the Zephyrians come to enslave us, they're not just fighting humanity. They're fighting 4 million years of evolutionary selection pressure that bred the ultimate survivor species. Admiral Chen activated a tactical simulation showing how Earth's defenses would be organized. Phase 1. We allow the Zephyrians to achieve orbital superiority. They'll interpret this as confirmation that we're a typical primitive species. Phase 2. We invite them to land and demand planetary surrender. While they're establishing ground bases, we're positioning assets for Phase 3. Which is, the German representative asked.
We show them why Earth is classified as a death world.
Every major city on Earth has been quietly modified over the past 18 months. Underground tunnels connect subway systems, sewer networks, utility corridors, and basement complexes into a three-dimensional maze that spans entire metropolitan areas. The Zephyrians will control the surface, but we'll own everything below ground level. Healer Zara's translation device struggled with the concept she was trying to express. Admiral, you are describing a planetary fortress designed to trap an enemy inside your own world.
This is unprecedented.
Most species would evacuate their population to preserve lives. We're not most species, Admiral Chen replied. Humans don't abandon their territory to invaders. We fortify it and make the invaders pay for every meter they take.
Starsinger had been quietly studying the human military assessments.
Admiral, your species has been preparing for this conflict for less than 2 years, yet these defensive plans appear to have been developed over decades. How is this possible? General Martinez exchanged glances with Admiral Chen. Starsinger, humans have been planning for planetary invasion scenarios since we developed nuclear weapons.
We've run thousands of simulations, built defensive systems, trained resistance forces, and developed contingency plans for fighting on our home territory. The only thing that changed was the identity of the invaders.
During your Cold War period, Dr. Vasquez added, both major powers spent 40 years developing strategies for fighting a nuclear conflict on Earth's surface.
Much of that planning has been adapted for fighting technologically superior alien forces. The Japanese representative stood up. Admiral, what about civilian casualties?
This strategy essentially turns the entire planet into a battlefield. Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly.
Tanaka, 18 months ago, every person on Earth was a civilian. Today, everyone on Earth is a potential target for alien genocide. We spent the last year training every able-bodied human in basic combat skills, emergency medical procedures, communications protocols, and survival techniques. When the Zephyrians arrive, they won't be facing helpless civilians. They'll be facing a planet full of irregulars. Starsinger looked around the assembly hall, her complex eyes reflecting the lights.
You have militarized your entire species. No, Admiral Chen corrected. We've revealed what we always were. Healer Zara, Starsinger, I want you to understand something about humans. We didn't become warriors because of the Zephyrian threat.
We became humans because we were already warriors. Every peaceful civilization you've encountered in the galaxy evolved on worlds that were kind to them.
We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. She gestured to the environmental displays. Ice ages that lasted millennia. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Asteroid impacts that poisoned the atmosphere. Predators that could tear apart anything that wasn't fast enough, smart enough, or vicious enough to survive. Humans aren't just another spacefaring species. We're the product of the most hostile evolutionary environment in this galaxy. General Kozlov stood up again. When the Zephyrians land on Earth, they think they will be conquering a primitive world full of helpless beings who don't understand warfare. Instead, they will discover that they have invaded a planet full of apex predators who have been preparing for exactly this kind of fight since before they learned to use tools. Zara was quiet for several minutes, processing everything she had heard. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of something that might have been hope. Admiral Chen, do you truly believe your species can defeat the Zephyrian Empire using these tactics? Admiral Chen smiled, and Starsinger later described that expression as the most terrifying thing she had ever seen on any world. Healer Zara, I don't just believe we can defeat them. I believe we can break them so completely that no other species in this galaxy will ever again think that might makes right. You see, Admiral Chen continued, the Zephyrians have spent the last century conquering garden worlds full of peaceful species. They'd never fought a species that evolved specifically to survive planetary disasters and kill anything that threatened their pack. They've never encountered a military force that views total warfare as just another day at the office. She gestured to the tactical displays showing Earth's defensive preparations. In 6 months, when the Zephyrian battle fleet arrives at Earth, they're going to discover something that no other species in galactic history has been able to show them. What happens when a death world fights back? The assembly hall fell silent as the delegates absorbed the implications of what they had heard. Earth wasn't just preparing to defend itself from invasion. It was preparing to demonstrate to the entire galaxy that some species didn't know how to surrender, didn't understand the concept of acceptable losses, and viewed total warfare as their natural state of existence. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn why the rest of the galaxy avoided death worlds, and they were going to learn it the hard way.
Emperor Thaxephor stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching Earth grow larger in the main viewport.
Behind him, 17 additional capital ships held position in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the dark metal that had become synonymous with Zephyrian supremacy across the galaxy.
This was supposed to be, This is the book. It's about history. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. The Emperor commanded. Status report. The Emperor commanded. General Krek Harbinger consulted his tactical display. All ships report ready status.
Planetary defenses are minimal. A few orbital platforms, some primitive missile systems. Their fleet appears to have withdrawn to the outer system. Standard behavior for a species recognizing their inferiority. Emperor Thax nodded, but something nagged at him. The intelligence reports on humanity had been contradictory. Their technology was primitive, but they had somehow developed faster than light travel in less than 2 years. Their military was fragmented among multiple nation-states, but they had achieved unprecedented global cooperation almost overnight. Most puzzling of all, they had responded to the Altarian distress call by immediately declaring war on an empire they had never encountered.
Open a channel to the planet, the Emperor ordered. Let's see how these humans respond to the sight of inevitable defeat. The communication array locked onto Earth's primary frequency, and Emperor Thax activated the standard conquest protocol.
Beings of the third planet, I am Emperor Thax Zephyr of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our domain. Surrender immediately and your species will be preserved as productive citizens of the Empire. Resist, and you will be exterminated as a lesson to others who would oppose our rightful expansion.
The response came within seconds, and Emperor Thax found himself looking at a human female wearing what appeared to be a military uniform.
Her species looked remarkably similar to several others the Empire had conquered, but there was something in her eyes that the Emperor had never seen before in 43 previous conquests.
This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Defense Force, the human said, her voice calm and steady. Emperor Thax, we have received your terms.
We reject them completely. General Harbinger leaned forward. Admiral, you appear to be under the misconception that you have a choice in this matter. Our fleet can destroy your planet from orbit. Surrender is your only option.
The human admiral smiled, and Emperor Thax felt an odd chill despite the regulated atmosphere of his ship. General, we've analyzed your previous conquests. You prefer to capture worlds intact for their industrial potential. You won't sterilize Earth from orbit because that would eliminate the resources you came here to claim. But perhaps, the Emperor admitted, but we can certainly eliminate your cities one by one until you comprehend the futility of resistance. You're welcome to try, Admiral Chen replied. But I should warn you, Earth isn't like other worlds you've conquered. We're what the galactic community calls a death world. We evolved here. We're adapted to it. And we spent the last year preparing it specifically for your arrival. Emperor Thax cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Began bombardment of their largest population center. Minimal damage. We want them to see our power, not lose valuable infrastructure. Sir, the tactical officer replied, their largest city appears to be something called Tokyo. Targeting now. The Eternal Dominion's primary weapon charged its energy readings, causing power fluctuations throughout the ship. This was the moment that had broken the spirit of every species the Empire had encountered. The demonstration of power so overwhelming that resistance became unthinkable. The plasma bolt lanced down through Earth's atmosphere, striking the heart of Tokyo with precision that could have destroyed a single building if the Emperor had chosen. Instead, it vaporized approximately 10 square blocks, creating a crater visible from orbit and sending a mushroom cloud into the sky. Open the channel, Emperor Thax commanded. Let's see how quickly they... Admiral Chen's face reappeared on the screen, but she was no longer on the bridge of a ship. She appeared to be in some kind of underground bunker, and behind her, Emperor Thax could see what looked like hundreds of humans moving with the efficient urgency of a military force. Impressive firepower, Admiral Chen said conversationally. You killed approximately 12,000 civilians in that strike. We've noted the energy signature and yield. Our defensive calculations have been updated accordingly. Emperor Thax stared at the screen. Admiral, I just demonstrated that we can destroy any target on your planet with perfect precision. Do you not understand that further resistance is pointless? Oh, I understand perfectly, Admiral Chen replied. You can destroy any target you can see from orbit. The question is, what happens when you can't see your targets? Before Emperor Thax could respond, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. Report, he barked. Sir, we're detecting massive movement on the planetary surface. Thermal imaging shows Emperor. It looks like their entire population is disappearing underground. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed cities that had been bustling with activity moments before now appearing almost deserted. But their MAMA sensors revealed a different story. Massive heat signatures moving through what appeared to be extensive underground networks. Fascinating, Emperor Thax murmured. They've militarized their entire civilian population. General Harbinger stepped forward. Sir, recommend we proceed to ground invasion.
Our atmospheric fighters can flush them out of whatever holes they've crawled into. Agreed. Launch the first wave.
3 hours later, Zephyrian dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere toward major population centers around the globe. The ships were sleek, deadly, and had never suffered a loss in 43 previous conquests.
Their energy shields could deflect primitive projectile weapons, their armor could withstand nuclear blasts, and their weapons could level city blocks, which made what happened next completely unprecedented in Zephyrian military history. The first dropships to land in what had been New York City found the streets eerily quiet. Abandoned vehicles blocked intersections, but there were no signs of civilian panic or military resistance. Zephyrian soldiers in powered armor emerged from their transports, their energy weapons, ready for the token resistance that usually preceded total surrender. Instead, they found themselves in a maze. Every street had been blocked by carefully positioned obstacles that channeled movement into specific corridors. Buildings that looked intact from orbit had been turned into interconnected fortifications with concealed firing positions. Storm drains, subway tunnels, and utility corridors had been converted into a three-dimensional battlefield where the Zephyrians' superior technology meant nothing. The first human resistance fighters appeared not as a conventional military force, but as invisible phantoms who struck from concealment and vanished before retaliation was possible. They used weapons that were primitive by Zephyrian standards but devastatingly effective in close quarters. Explosives that could damage powered armor, projectile weapons that could penetrate energy shields through sustained fire, and most disturbing of all, melee weapons designed specifically to exploit weak points in Zephyrian equipment. Lieutenant Commander Zex Nightblade led the first assault squad into the ruins of Times Square. His squad of 12 warriors had conquered cities on 6 different worlds. They were equipped with personal energy shields, powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed, and weapons that could melt through meter-thick steel. They lasted exactly 17 minutes. The humans didn't fight like any species the Zephyrians had encountered. They didn't mass their forces for heroic last stands. They didn't attempt to hold territory that could be bombarded from orbit. Instead, they fought like the products of 4 million years of evolutionary warfare. Patient, adaptive, and utterly ruthless. Explosives detonated under Zephyrian feet, triggered by sensors that detected the specific energy signatures of their armor. Projectile weapons fired from concealed positions in sequences calculated to overload personal shields. Most disturbing of all, humans appeared with melee weapons, knives, swords, and tools designed for close combat, and attacked with a ferocity that shocked soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds. "Command, this is Nightblade," Zex reported through his comm system. "We are taking casualties. These humans are not fighting conventionally. They appear to be using the terrain itself as a weapon." Before Command could respond, the Lieutenant Commander's sensors detected movement in the rubble around his position. Thermal imaging showed dozens of human signatures emerging from concealment points that his scanners hadn't detected. They moved with coordinated precision, cutting off retreat routes and forcing his squad into a killing zone that had been prepared specifically for Zephyrian tactics. The last thing Lieutenant Commander Nightblade transmitted was a warning that would echo through Zephyrian military communications for the remainder of the war. "These humans, they're not just defending their territory, they're hunting us." Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, Zephyrian forces found themselves fighting through a subway system that had been converted into a fortified network connecting every major building in the city. In Moscow, winter weather that barely affected human fighters caused massive equipment failures in Zephyrian technology. In the Amazon, jungle warfare specialists used terrain and climate to turn the rainforest into a death trap for soldiers who had never encountered anything more challenging than a garden world's mild weather. But it was in the ruins of Tokyo, where Emperor Thax had demonstrated his power, that the humans revealed the true depth of their preparation. The crater left by the orbital bombardment had been converted into a fortress. Instead of fleeing the destruction, human engineers had used the devastation as the foundation for a defensive complex that extended hundreds of meters underground. Zephyrian forces advancing into the area found themselves fighting not just human resistance but the environment itself. Radiation from the orbital strike had been concentrated and weaponized, Chemical weapons derived from Earth's most toxic industrial processes filled the air in concentrations that overwhelmed Zephyrian filtration systems. Most terrifying of all, the humans had somehow cultivated biological agents, bacteria and viruses from Earth's most hostile environments, that specifically targeted the materials used in Zephyrian equipment.
Sir, General Harbinger reported to Emperor Thax, we're losing ground forces at an unprecedented rate. These humans are using tactics we've never encountered.
They're fighting with their entire planet as a weapon. Emperor Thax studied the tactical display showing his forces' positions around the globe.
Red icons marking casualties were multiplying faster than he had ever seen in 43 previous conquests. Explain. They've weaponized their weather.
Storms that ground our atmospheric fighters, cold that freezes our equipment, heat that overloads our systems.
They've militarized their environment to the point where the planet itself is attacking us. And their military capabilities? Sir, every human on this planet appears to be a trained combatant. We're not fighting an army. We're fighting an entire species that has been bred for warfare.
They don't just know how to fight. They know how to fight us specifically. Emperor Thax felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. Uncertainty. How is that possible?
We've had minimal contact with this species. Sir, they captured one of our scout ships 3 months ago.
Apparently, they've been studying our technology, learning our tactics, and developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize our advantages. The Emperor turned to his communication officer.
Get me Admiral Chen. When the human admiral appeared on screen, she was clearly in a command bunker deep underground. Behind her, Emperor Thax could see displays showing real-time tactical information from battlefields around the globe. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human forces weren't just resisting his invasion, they were winning. Admiral, he said carefully, you have fought. Impressively, but this cannot continue.
I can glass your planet from orbit, render it uninhabitable for centuries.
Admiral Chen smiled, and Emperor Thax realized that he was looking at the expression of a predator that had cornered its prey. Emperor, 6 hours ago you had 17 capital ships in orbit.
Our satellites show you now have 11 functional vessels. The rest are drifting hulks or debris fields. Emperor Thax's tactical officer confirmed what he had been dreading. Human spacecraft, previously thought to be primitive and harmless, had been systematically attacking his fleet using kamikaze tactics that his defenses weren't designed to counter. Ships loaded with nuclear weapons and guided by human pilots who showed no concern for their own survival had crippled his invasion force.
This is impossible, Emperor Thax said. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Our technology is different from yours, Admiral Chen corrected.
You've spent centuries conquering species that evolved on garden worlds, species that developed technology for exploration and peaceful expansion. We developed technology for survival and warfare. Every system on our ships, every weapon in our arsenal, every tactic in our playbook is designed around a simple principle: win or die trying. She gestured to the tactical displays behind her. Emperor, would you like to know how many of your ground forces are still combat effective after 6 hours of fighting on Earth? Emperor Thax felt his empire's first major defeat crystallizing around him. Report. 47% casualties and rising.
Your remaining forces are trapped in defensive positions in hostile territory, cut off from resupply, facing an enemy that knows this terrain better than you know your own ships. You have 3 options: withdraw immediately, surrender unconditionally, or watch your invasion force be completely annihilated by a species you thought was primitive.
The Emperor looked around his bridge, seeing the same realization dawning on every face. They had not just failed to conquer Earth. They had walked into a trap set by apex predators who had spent their entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of killing anything that threatened them.
Admiral, Emperor Thax said slowly, what are your terms?
Admiral Chen's smile became absolutely feral.
Emperor, you misunderstand the situation. We're not offering you terms.
We're offering you a choice. Leave our space immediately, or discover what happens when a Deathworld species decides you're a threat to everyone they've decided to protect. As if to emphasize her point, another Zephyrian ship exploded on the tactical display, torn apart by human fighters who had rammed it with nuclear payloads. Emperor Thax had conquered 43 worlds by understanding when he faced a superior force. As alarms sounded throughout his flagship and damage reports flooded in from around the globe, he came to a realization that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Humans were not just another spacefaring species. They were a weaponized civilization that had spent millions of years learning how to survive by killing anything that threatened their pack. And they had just decided that the Zephyrian Empire threatened everyone under their protection. The age of easy conquest was over. The galaxy's apex predators had announced their presence, and they were taking no prisoners.
When aliens sent a distress signal, Deathworlders answered with ultimate power. HFY Stories.